my daughter came home from school in tears. Mom, Grandma gave cousin Lily a designer bag and a trip, but she only gave me a dollar toy. I hugged her and called my mom. She laughed. Well, Lily deserves the best. Your daughter should be grateful she got anything at all. But days later she faced a consequence she never expected. In the suburbs of Alexandria, Virginia, on a May morning filled with the fragrance of fresh greenery, colonial-style houses enclosed by white picket fences basked in the gentle morning sunlight. Emma, don't forget your lunch. I made your favorite pot roast sandwich today, Jennifer Wilson called out as she saw off her third-grade daughter at the front door. Emma, wearing a light pink dress, hugged her mother tightly and responded with a bright smile. I love you, Mom. Her gesture was as warm and bright as the spring sunshine. The dogwood flowers blooming in the neighborhood seemed to watch over this tender moment between mother and daughter. Her husband Michael, heading to the construction site in his white pickup truck, waved goodbye, saying, "Take care." As the owner of a small but successful construction company, he carried in his heart the pride and responsibility of supporting his family. Jennifer's daily routine as a nurse at the local hospital began after seeing Emma off to school. Changing into the clean scrubs she'd found at TJ Maxx, she would make the usual 15-minute drive to the hospital, where police patrol cars occasionally sounded their sirens. Along the way, Old Town's historic streets gleamed in the morning light. Good morning, Jennifer. Looking forward to working with you today. As she exchanged greetings with her colleagues, she recalled last night's events. The dinner table they had shared around the kitchen island after Michael had finished his construction work, with Emma excitedly talking about her piano recital. It warmed her heart. There was soccer practice coming up on the weekend too. It was ordinary, yet undeniably precious happiness. However, beneath this peaceful daily life, invisible cracks were slowly widening. Her sister Catherine lived in an upscale neighborhood with her husband Gregory, a vice president at an investment bank, and their daughter Lily, who attended private school. They resided in a Georgian mansion, surrounded by luxurious activities like horseback riding, ballet, and tennis. Their mother Margaret openly favored Catherine's family. Margaret, an influential member of First Presbyterian Church, valued social reputation above all else. During Sunday brunch after service, she would proudly introduce Catherine's family, while casting Emma got a dollar store doll. For birthdays, only Lily received special gifts like a trip to Disneyland. In family photos, Lily, dressed in new clothes from Nordstrom, was placed in the center, while Emma, wearing second-hand dresses, was pushed to the side. At charity bazaars and garden club tea parties, Margaret's discriminatory attitude persisted. Catherine not only went along with her mother's behavior, but sometimes took the initiative in showing disdain for her sister's family. Recently, their father Robert, who had retired as an executive at a major corporation, began to notice his wife's behavior. After 40 years of being consumed by work, he was finally starting to see the reality of his family. On the way home from Wednesday Bible study, he would question his wife. Margaret, why such different treatment between Emma and Lily? Oh, you wouldn't understand. Social appearances. Behind the peaceful facade of weekend church attendance, in the historic red brick church established in 1772, family tensions were quietly but surely deepening beneath the exchange smiles. The May, at 3 in the afternoon, the wind chime-like sound of school dismissal echoed through Maple Street, lined with colonial-style houses. The geraniums on the Wilson family's porch bloomed brilliantly in the early summer sunlight. Their well-tended garden, which won prizes every year in the local gardening enthusiast contest, reflected the warm atmosphere of their home. Jennifer had finished her hospital shift early and was preparing to welcome her daughter. In the kitchen, she was baking chocolate chip cookies, Emma's favorite. These homemade treats, made from her grandmother's recipe, were always guaranteed to bring a smile to her daughter's face. As the sweet aroma filled the room, she was planning tomorrow's menu while storing organic vegetables and fresh ingredients from Whole Foods in the refrigerator. Usually at this time, the energetic voices of neighborhood children could be heard. Emma would often chat with her friends and sometimes stay to do homework. But today was different. I'm home. The voice from the entrance set off maternal alarm bells. It wasn't her usual cheerful tone. Instead, it was heavy and suppressed. Jennifer caught her breath at the sight of Emma entering the living room. Her usually neat St. Mary's private school uniform was disheveled, the navy pleated skirt was crooked, the white blouse wrinkled. The embroidered emblem on her chest seemed to be crying, twisted out of shape. Her normally well-tied brown hair was messy, and the straps of her Ralph Lauren backpack trembled in her tightly clenched hands. Large tears were flowing from Emma's eyes. The edges were red and swollen, with dried tear tracks on her cheeks. Emma, what's wrong? As Jennifer rushed over, Emma responded with a choked voice. There was no trace of the daughter who had bounced out that morning with a bright, "I love you, Mom." Mom. Grandma gave Lily a Gucci bag and a trip to Disneyland. But for me, Emma's voice trailed off as she pulled a small box from her backpack. A cheap plastic doll from the dollar store was stuffed into a careless box without even gift wrapping. Dust had already settled on the doll's surface. How did you find out? Lily was bragging about it at school, in front of everyone. Emma's voice trembled. With each quiver of her small lips, her mother's heart shook too. During recess, Lily brought her new bag. Everyone was gathering around saying wow, and then Emma choked on her words and took a deep breath. Pressing the sleeve of her white uniform against her eyes, she struggled to continue. Lily said, "Grandma gave this to me. She said I deserve expensive things." But Emma then she took out my present box and showed everyone, saying, "Look at this." Everyone was laughing. Tears flowed again. Emma's small shoulders shook. The kitchen, filled with the sweet smell of cookies, was now heavy with sadness. Jennifer held her daughter tightly. Anger burned inside her chest, but she desperately tried to contain it while continuing to rub her daughter's back. The scent of laundry detergent and classroom chalk mingled on Emma's uniform. "Wait here." Jennifer picked up her phone and dialed her mother's number. After 3 rings, Margaret's voice came through. In the background, the lively voices of upper-class ladies at a garden club tea party could be heard. "Well, Jennifer, this is unusual. Mom, what's the meaning of this?" "What do you mean?" The difference in presence between Emma and Lily. A superficial laugh came through the phone. Along with the clinking of teacups, the voice sounded even more arrogant. "Really, calling about such a trivial matter? This isn't trivial. Why such discrimination?" "Well, Lily deserves the best, doesn't she? She's Catherine's daughter. The daughter of an investment bank vice president's wife needs certain things. Your daughter should be grateful she received anything at all. I never thought I'd have to explain such obvious things at my age." Margaret's voice dripped with the arrogance born from years of social status. As a leader in First Presbyterian Church, her words carried absolute confidence. Obvious? How is hurting Emma's feelings obvious? My, how dramatic. You see, in society there are classes. Jennifer hung up. She saw no point in continuing the conversation. She placed her trembling hand on the kitchen counter and exhaled deeply. At dusk, when Michael returned home from work, she told him about the day's events. She could see anger burning in her husband's eyes, despite his exhaustion from construction work. How could they? Michael clenched his fist. Blue veins stood out on his large hands, toughened by construction work. "But let's think this through calmly," Jennifer said, gently holding her husband's hand. "For Emma's sake, let's focus on what we can do." They talked for a long time. Outside the window, dusk quietly enveloped the street. Beyond the white picket fence, children's laughter could still be heard. Sunday morning, the bells of First Presbyterian Church rang out over the quiet town. Early summer sunlight poured onto the white steeple, and stained glass windows cast rainbow-colored light onto the floor. This church, with over 2 centuries of history, had long been the spiritual pillar of Alexandria's upper society. The red brick walls bore the marks of generations of faith. "Emma, are you okay?" Jennifer called out to her daughter, who sat quietly in the back seat. Usually this was when Emma would eagerly talk about Sunday school. But today she only sighed deeply. Though her navy dress was worn properly, her expression still bore heavy traces of yesterday's events. She nervously clutched the edge of her white-collared blouse, which her mother had carefully ironed late into the previous night. The church parking lot was already filled with cars. Among the Mercedes and BMWs, the Wilson's practical Toyota took up a modest space. Michael gently stroked Emma's hair, whispering, "It'll be all right." With Memorial Day approaching, the church entrance was decorated with American flags and seasonal flowers arranged by the ladies. Petunias and geraniums sparkled brilliantly in the morning light. "Good morning, Jennifer." At the church entrance, Catherine, dressed in a Burberry dress, greeted her with a superficial smile. A new Cartier necklace gleamed at her throat. Beside her, Lily proudly clutched her new Gucci bag. Even Lily's shoes were clearly from a luxury brand. "Lily, what a lovely bag." Country club members showered compliments. Margaret placed her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder with a proud expression. The scent of eau de parfum wafted from her Lakoff twin set. "Yes, only the best for my precious granddaughter." At those words, Emma's shoulders trembled slightly. The service began, and the congregation was enveloped in a solemn atmosphere. The majestic sound of the pipe organ filled the old church. However, the silence didn't last long. During Sunday school time, an unexpected incident occurred in present. Lily's malicious voice echoed through the marble hallway. "Stop!" Emma's trembling voice. Her hands clutched the dollar store doll even tighter, the same doll she'd been holding since yesterday. "But I want to show everyone the difference between what Grandma gave me and Emma. It's only natural there's a difference in class, right?" Robert, who happened to be passing by, overheard this conversation. His keen executive's eye didn't miss the subtle expressions on his granddaughter's faces. Years of experience immediately alerted him to the abnormality of the situation. Lily, what do you mean by that? At his stern voice, Lily flinched. Surprised by the unexpected harsh tone from her usually gentle grandfather, she showed an expression of shock. Grandfather, explain yourself. Robert's voice carried the authority cultivated through 40 years of corporate management. His gaze held the same sharpness he once showed at crucial shareholders' meetings. Reluctantly, Lily began to explain about the presents, the Gucci bag, the Disneyland trip, and Emma's dollar store doll. Robert's expression gradually darkened. Deep wrinkles etched themselves along with his anger. Margaret. His voice echoed through the sanctuary, causing the congregation to turn. Even the pastor's sermon paused momentarily. Light through the stained glass illuminated Robert's anger-filled face. Robert, what's wrong? This is church. Margaret tried to admonish him in a low voice, conscious of the surrounding eyes. However, she saw an anger in her husband's expression that she had never witnessed before. I want an explanation. Why this difference between our granddaughters? Answer me before Christ. Well, social appearances? Robert's voice grew stronger. The authority of his years as a corporate executive poured out with his anger. His voice seemed to reach the sanctuary's ceiling. In 40 years of marriage, I've never been so disappointed. What have we valued all this time? His words hung heavily in the silent sanctuary. As everyone held their breath, only the pipe organ's resonance faintly trembled in the air. You don't understand. Social appearances in this world. What appearances justify crushing our grandchild's heart? Robert's angry voice made the stained glass windows tremble. His voice carried the pain of 40 years of marital trust crumbling. Christmas presents, birthday gifts, treatment, and family photos. I've heard it all. What are you thinking? Is this what our family bonds amount to? But Lily is. Lily is what? Because she's Catherine's daughter? Because she's an investment banker's daughter? You think such reasons matter before God? Robert confronted his wife. The congregation watched with bated breath. Even among the elders, surprised voices could be heard. This is not the love our church preaches. Christ's teachings speak of equality. And you. Robert stumbled over his words. Beside him, Emma trembled slightly. Though startled by her grandfather's anger, she understood in that moment that his anger was in defense of her. Come here, Emma. Robert gently drew his granddaughter close. With his large hands, he rubbed her back just as he had once held his daughter Jennifer. Grandpa will make this right. I promise before God. At those words, tears flowed from Emma's eyes. But these were different from yesterday's tears of sadness. They were warm tears of relief. Margaret, unable to bear the surrounding looks of condemnation, left the sanctuary. The sound of her Christian Dior heels clicking hurriedly on the marble floor echoed. In her retreating figure, one could almost hear the sound of her long-built social prestige crumbling. From that Sunday, Margaret Thompson's world began to collapse like falling dominoes. First, her position at First Presbyterian Church changed completely. The influence she had built up over 40 years crumbled in an instant. Margaret, about this year's charity bazaar. Elizabeth Montgomery, the Women's Association president, continued awkwardly. We've decided to review the selection of officers. Margaret immediately understood the meaning. She would lose her position as general manager of the charity bazaar, a role she had held for 20 years. I see. Margaret responded, desperately trying to keep her voice from trembling. But even at that moment, various rumors were flying through the church hallways. At Sunday services, her once close friends now pretended not to see her. During choir practice, no one would sit next to her. An invisible wall had been built around Margaret. Elizabeth, about next week's bridge club. I'm sorry. We've decided to limit membership starting this month. This was just the beginning. She received a notice of membership suspension from the Alexandria Garden Club. The club president's handwritten letter cited the membership dignity regulations. Margaret learned that the photographs of her garden, which she had carefully tended for 30 years, had been removed from the club's annual calendar. Her position at the country club also changed. She was no longer invited to the monthly tea parties, and the tennis courts were always supposedly fully booked when she tried to make reservations. Madam, regarding this year's Christmas party. It was a call from the Windsor family, long-standing pillars of society. Unfortunately, due to seating limitations this year, the meaning was clear. Changes occurred within the family as well. Catherine's family stopped showing up for Wednesday dinner. Mom, Lily's been acting strange lately. Catherine's voice on the phone had lost its former arrogance. At school, other children are treating her coldly. They're saying they don't want to become like Grandma. Margaret caught her breath. Learning that her actions had affected even her granddaughter's school life, her chest tightened. However, the most serious blow came from her husband Robert. Margaret, I think we should separate for a while. His voice, which had made difficult decisions in the executive suite many times, carried an unprecedented weight. I'm moving to the vacation house. You need time to seriously think about your actions. But Robert, this is non-negotiable. And Robert paused for a moment and took a deep sigh. I've decided to transfer most of our savings to Emma's education fund. Lily has plenty of assets already. This is what fairness looks like. At those words, Margaret's knees gave way. Sitting on the sofa in her luxurious living room, Margaret stared out the window. Well-tended spring flowers still bloomed brilliantly in the garden. However, the friends with whom she once shared this beauty were now gone. Her cell phone rang. She hurriedly hung up when she saw St. James Luxury Senior Living displayed on the screen. The elegant retirement life she had dreamed of for years was now beyond her reach. Instead, brochures from an ordinary suburban nursing home lay on the table. The cover featured the tagline "Peaceful Living," but the facility photos were far removed from the graceful retirement she had envisioned. Oh Lord! Her prayer echoed emptily in the room. Under the crystal chandelier, the former queen of society was enveloped in complete solitude. The ticking of the clock seemed oddly loud. Margaret acutely felt that the wheels of her life had gone astray beyond the point of no return. Outside, the church bells were ringing. The bells announcing Sunday service had once been a symbol of pride for her. Now they were just sounds reminding her of all she had lost. Closing the curtains, Margaret shed truly remorseful tears for the first time in the darkened room. These weren't tears for losing her social status. They were tears for the irreparable mistake of hurting her granddaughter's pure hearts. A year later, in spring, a new season had come to Alexandria once again. In the Wilson family's yard, Emma was practicing soccer with her friends. Now 9 years old, she had grown much stronger than before. "Nice shot!" neighbors called out from beyond the white picket fence. In the same place where she was once secretly scorned as the construction worker's daughter, everyone now offered warm greetings. "Emma, snack time." Jennifer appeared with homemade lemonade and cookies. The white ribbon in her hair swayed in the spring breeze. "Mom, in class today, we wrote essays about what makes me proud," Emma began, nestling close to her mother. "I wrote about my hardworking mom, my dedicated dad, and my honest grandpa." Those words brought tears to Jennifer's eyes. Meanwhile, at Maple Garden, an ordinary nursing home in the suburbs, Margaret was living a completely different life. In stark contrast to her former luxurious reception room, she now had a simple 6-tatami mat-sized private room. By the window sat pots of geraniums she grew herself. Though there were no expensive vases, the flowers showed unmistakable vitality. "Mrs. Thompson, it's time for the gardening club." Margaret slowly looked up at the caregiver's voice. "Yes, thank you." Anyone who knew her from her glamorous social days would be shocked by her appearance. Her designer clothes were stored away, replaced by ordinary department store wear. Yet her expression held a strange serenity. "Grandma." Sunday afternoon. Emma and Lily visited Margaret's room. Their relationship was slowly healing after that incident. "Emma? Lily?" Margaret gazed at her granddaughters. The discriminatory look from before was gone. "Look, Grandma, Emma and I started taking ballet classes together," Lily reported happily. Her life, which until last year had been filled with expensive activities like horseback riding and tennis, had changed significantly. "That's wonderful." These words carried genuine warmth, unlike her former superficial praise. "Grandma, look at this." Emma held out a photograph from her recent school music festival. "I won first place in the piano recital." "Oh my." Margaret took the photo with slightly trembling hands. She could now genuinely rejoice in the growth of the granddaughter she had once neglected. That's wonderful." The emotion in those words was pure grandmother's love. Robert, still living separately, visited Margaret once a month. Today, too, they sat quietly talking on a garden bench. "Emma's education fund is being managed well." "Yes, thank you. You've changed." "Yes, but perhaps too late." Robert nodded silently at Margaret's words. Margaret was rarely seen at church anymore. Instead, she quietly prayed in the nursing home's small chapel. There were no elaborate stained glass windows or majestic pipe organs. Yet in this simple space, she was beginning to understand the true meaning of prayer for the first time. Catherine had changed too. She gave up her mansion in the upscale neighborhood and chose a more modest lifestyle. Style. "Mom's situation made me think," she candidly told her sister Jennifer. "How foolish we were, living for appearances and pretense." Early summer breezes wafted through Maple Gardens grounds. As Margaret watched her granddaughters leave, she reflected. She had lost much: social status, luxurious lifestyle, and most importantly, daily life with her husband. But she had gained something too. Genuine relationships, honest emotions, and most importantly, true family bonds. Lord. Margaret looked up at the twilight sky through her small window. "Thank you for letting me spend my final days with this understanding." The setting sun cast a gentle light into her room.